Hello, my name is Elijah Wells, and today's review is Hayao Miyazaki's new movie, The Boy and the Heron. Taking place during the Second World War, Mahito moves to the countryside to get away from the bombing raids, and while he's at his new house with his stepmom and his dad, in his house that included a factory to make Japanese planes, and his house and a mansion, of course, he finds an abandoned castle and a grey heron that surprisingly talks. So he ventures off to the abandoned tower that somehow sits in the complex of his new home and finds out and try make his own meaning and his own sense and his own comprehension of his mother's death, who was killed during a bombing raid. The film prior to this one, in Hayao Miyazaki's film, being The Wind Rises, around the press tour of this film, he announced that he's officially retiring from making films, and that Wind Rises would be his last movie. Until he said, you know what, I'm going to make a short film, Borrow a Caterpillar, which is available to watch if you go to the Studio Ghibli Museum. Then things got a little bit more interesting when in 2016, it turns out he's storyboarding a whole new movie, coming out of retirement. Then the following year, 2017, he did officially announce that the production had essentially started, and with the release date ideally around the 2020 Olympic Games. But unfortunately, this is where things got a little bit surreal. Of course, there was a pandemic that completely halted the Olympics for a whole year. Hayao Miyazaki's allegedly very sluggish pace of production, and actually, in fact, there's a lot of rumors suggesting some rewrites happened in the movie and some other stuff in the movie, and no set deadlines like something like I said Takahata did with something like Tale of Prince of Kaguya. But the movie did eventually come out in Japan only in July 2023, and it gets a lot more interesting as the only thing they advertised the movie with was just a sole poster. No trailer, no other prints, no still shots of the movie, and not even the cast were even announced until like the very last minute. It was basically letting the audience in from the dark, essentially. And of course, the movie is both a critical and a financial darling in Japan. And even though he did say it's the most expensive film he has done, well, he hasn't clarified how expensive it was and how all that malarkey. So after was essentially the apocalypse now of like animation production. So let's see how Boy and the Heron went down as Miyazaki's first film after a 10-year hiatus. As soon as it was announced that Boy and the Heron was officially going to come out in the UK in Boxing Day, in the UK, I felt like I had my Christmas set already. Like, this was going to be an absolute winner. And considering that Hayao Miyazaki has directed essentially my all-time favorite movie, Spirited Away, and as well as a smorgasbord of like a lot of it critically acclaimed movies that I absolutely like Princess Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle, which was my introduction to his films, and also I wrote a dissertation around that movie, Ponyo, Kiki's Delivery Service, and My Neighbor Totoro, and also Porco Rosso is also still really good in my opinion. Like, to hear that he's officially out of his hiatus, and that the absolute hype storm the movie created, and guess what? You have to believe the hype, because he completely pulled out all the stops and completely demonstrated why he's almost like the most important animation director. It's surprisingly still working today at the moment. Like 5 years ago, there'll be some rumors that, you can make a new movie. Interesting. Then fast forward to now, he's already like in a lot of best films of the year lists, because he still leveraged a lot of clout at the moment. Not for nostalgia reason, but just because a lot of his films have been considered one of the greatest films of all time. Not just in animation, not just in anime, not just in Japanese cinema, but of all time, like very little exceptions about it. The movie does take a lot of aspects, particularly of his own childhood as well, particularly that he did move to the countryside due to the bombing raids that were happening in Japan, and also the fact that his father did own a factory where they made aircraft during the Second World War, which was also super intriguing since I did a lot of research, particularly for my dissertation about him, which is something that has really stuck out to me. Like, this is a man who stuck really true to his word, and also a movie that kind of looked back on his own upbringing as well, which is something I found really deeply interesting as well. And also, the casting of this movie is like pretty phenomenal. Since I did watch it in English dub, well, you can find me over it because I both dub and sub are also brilliant, but I've watched it in dub. There's Robert Pattinson, and there's Gemma Chan, and there's Christian Bale, Mark Hamill, Florence Pugh, Willem Dafoe, Dave Bautista, who are also in this movie, and they all give out like incredible performances as well. But Mahito, voiced by Luca Padro, who I think he's a relatively unknown actor, but he is absolutely brilliant doing his voice work in this movie. Like, great job for him. Like, and also Robert Pattinson, since he did get a lot of attention in this movie as playing the really cranky, really one more weirder voice actors. Basically, like, I am the great Heron. I know your mother. Don't ever make me do voice acting again. And I eat a lot of fish, and I'll be your guide. Yeah, that is the same guy who was in Twilight, and that's the same guy who did the Goth Batman, and also the same guy who did Tenet. Like, his absolute guttural commitment to the role is almost unfathomable at this point. And of course, there's Mark Hamill, Christian Bale, who have both voiced previous Studio Ghibli characters, also returning as well, to also give some great performances in the voice role as well. The animation is utterly enthralling and completely gorgeous to look at, and also just sweeps over you, and also almost washes over you just very beautifully as well, and very thematic as well, and just amplifies the movie's atmosphere to a great degree, in my opinion, as well. And also, a great vice for this animation is also the score of Joe Hisaishi, who, if you may know already, has already got his first Golden Globe nomination, his first major award nomination for his music he's done. Like, he hasn't got nominated for a Grammy, Oscar, Tony, or a BAFTA or something, but this is his first major nomination for his music, which is something I'm extremely proud of. Like, he, given the music he's made, both in the past and particularly in this movie, I feel like it was definitely warranted a nomination, particularly for his music, which is something I'm deeply proud of, that as a Ghibli fan and as someone who really likes his music, it's just something I'm just very happy to have seen. And also, his music in this movie is, again, absolutely brilliant, and the animation is absolutely gorgeous, both the scenic environments around the and also the character animations. And again, the movie is still like a usual Miyazaki movie, is just brimming and just bursting in colours. It's a complete feast of your eyes, in my opinion. It's just a very gorgeous film to look at. Again, like all Miyazaki movies are. Like almost the entirety of Miyazaki's filmography, it does dwell into the supernatural, like, very splendidly, in my opinion, and very tasteful, in my opinion. Particularly the complete mythos around the abandoned the abandoned tower that just sits in the complex, and the grand uncle who's voiced by Mark Hamill in this movie, and essentially being an avid researcher, an avid author, and just someone that loves to explore, and who unfortunately goes completely insane to the point it was his last known whereabouts as being the supposed abandoned castle. Which is something Miyazaki does play to his strengths incredibly well in this movie. Like, particularly in the spirit realm, particularly if it's used in an allegorical sense, or used in a folklore sense, or something that's in a way to respond to, like, Japan, usually in a contextual way, or in a contemporary way, or in a retrospective way. He does it extremely well in all fronts of that, in my opinion. And also, there's also more and more I liked about this movie, and particularly the characters in the movie, like Florence Pugh's character is also amazing, despite being in like a major chunk of mostly in the second act of the movie. And Also, the stepmother is also surprisingly likable as well, and Christian Bale, even though people saw him as the major villain of the entire film, I feel like Miyazaki has done more meaner, more sinister, more cold villains in his entire filmography. Since again, he has worked with Miyazaki-ish, with Howl's Moving Castle playing the title character, but I feel like with the antagonist in the film, particularly with the Paquette King being voiced by Dave Bautista, who is pretty much predominantly features in the third act of the movie, I feel like Miyazaki might have gone with a more heartless and more cruel addition to his antagonist in the movie, like Princess Mononoke, Grateful Fireflies, or maybe Spirited Away in the sense of word. But I feel like I'm very satisfied with what he came down with. And even in the more comic reliefs in the scene, in the film, and also the comedy in the film, it's surprisingly actually really funny at best. Like the maids like bickering about food shortages in Japan during World War II, and of all the things they complain about is the lack of tobacco, which again done in a surprisingly comedic manner, and also Christian Bale saying that, "Oh no, my son is a bird," when he completely, when he had to fight off a swarm of birds that accidentally entered into the earthworm, and be like, I thought, and that Mahito did briefly pop up before going back into the tower, but like, my son turned into a bird, which did generate a lot of laughs around the cinema I watched it at. And also, you may have seen it at the dub trailer. It's basically when Florence Pugh's character did say, "I've heard grey herrings are liars. Is that true?" And both Mahito and the grey heron gave contradicting answers, like, "It's a true, no, it's a lie." And they both looked at each other with the face that reads, "You fool." And of course, I kind of had a little bit of kick at that. Like, that was a pretty cleverly funny scene, in my opinion, since the grey heron is almost a bit of a Rashomon character, as in just completely contradicts himself to a point. It's almost a bit jarring, but in a way that totally makes sense at the end of it. Knowing that Hayao Miyazaki is back after a 10-year-long hiatus, and he delivered definitely a very more thought-provoking, definitely a deeply profound movie that definitely touches particularly on his childhood, and to the point it's almost semi-autobiographical, and definitely goes into the fantastical elements he is known for, and his views on the spirituality, and of course the characters are absolutely great in the movie. The animation is pretty much unparalleled at this point, and the music of Joe Hisaishi is so on point that he's actually now finally getting attention through the award circuits at the moment, and the voice casts are completely knocked it out of the park with some great voice acting as well. The movie, as a Studio Ghibli fan, is an absolute treat for me. Like, even if Miyazaki either does or does not retire after this movie, or even though it did say in Toronto Film Festival he's working on another film as well, but I feel like this is a major welcome back to Hayao Miyazaki, and since he left us with the Wind Rises, and since he came back with The Boy and Heron, I feel like his filmography is only just going to get a lot better, in my opinion, and this is a very strong, definitely a pinnacle of his filmography, and this is again just a brilliant movie all in all. I could go on and on, but I might have to end the video here. So I'm feeling a 9 out of 10 for Boy and the Heron. So, what do you think of Boy and the Heron? Let me know in the comments down below. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and also on Letterboxd. And this is Elijah Wells, and bye.